A new report coming out in the American Journal of Sociology basically claims that if you live in an area where there are more conservative Christians, you may be more likely to get divorced. And what they did is they basically looked at a map of every county in America, and they took a look at where all the conservative Christians live, where the demographics are in their favor. So we're talking a lot of Bible Belt areas in the South, you know. And then they looked at what are the divorce rates in all of those counties. And it turns out there's a pretty strong correlation between where a lot of divorces are happening and where all the religious conservatives live. So it kind of makes you wonder, you know, these are the people who say that their religion is all about the sake of the family, and, you know, it's all about family values, and if you're not of their religion, you know, you're more likely to get divorced, is kind of the common wisdom. But this study basically flips that on its head. Now, why would that happen? Why would it be that if you live in a conservative Christian world or a community, you know, why would you be more likely to get divorced? And you know, they have some theories about this. It's not solid, but here's basically the theory that makes the most sense to me. A lot of children, a lot of teenagers, at some point, they want to have sex, but they've been brought up in their families and an environment and a culture and their churches where everyone around them tells them you have to be abstinent. They go to schools where they preach abstinence-only education. They sign purity pledges, you know? They sign abstinence pledges. They go to purity balls. And their whole life they know that they should not have premarital sex. And so what's the solution to that? The solution to that, if you are a young Christian, is to get married. So a lot of these people go to college, and by the time they graduate from college, if they go to college, they're already married. They hardly have a career. They haven't had time to work on that. They may not even have a solid job, but they're married now. And that's stressful. I mean, marriage can be stressful, but marriage when you're that young and you still have to establish, you know, a job and a career and finding a place to live and paying your mortgage, that's stress. Then to add on top of that, they start having sex, they start producing babies, and now they have babies in their households, and there's some more stress. And I can understand how when you pile all those stressors on top of one another, it's probably more likely that you're going to get divorced. People who get married later in life, people who have more of a career established already, are less likely to get divorced. So I can understand how that study that says if you live in a conservative area, you're going to get divorced, I could see how that makes some sense. And here's what else they said that was striking. They said even if you're not conservative Christian, but you live in those counties, you're more likely to get divorced. So it's like, oh, if you're an atheist, but you live, let's say, in the Bible Belt in one of those counties, you're also at a higher risk of divorce. So why might that be the case if you don't believe in any of that stuff? Well, the thought process there is that you still go to the same high schools. You're still part of that community that says premarital sex is wrong, that you do have to get married at a young age, that if you're 20 and you're not seeing anybody, there's something wrong with you, that any woman who goes to college is only going there to get her MRS degree, and that's it. And that's another problem in and of itself. If you live in one of these communities where the divorce rates are high, if you live in a place where you go to college and you graduate and you're not married and everyone looks at you funny, I hope you realize there's a bigger country out there, a bigger world out there where you can graduate and be single and no one thinks anything of it. It's perfectly fine. So you can get out of that bubble. And another thing that's worth noting is that in a sense, this study also suggests that if you are not religious or you live in a community where religion isn't as big of a deal, you are less likely to get divorced. And why might that be? And I think part of it has to do with the fact that you are getting married when you're a little older. And that means you kind of know what you want in a marriage. You kind of know the other person a little better, maybe, than you might have at a younger age. And it also means there's probably a better likelihood that you live with that other person before you get married. You really do get to know what you're getting into before you actually, you know, step up to the altar. And I think those are things that, obviously, it's your decision, whatever you want to do. But I think those things help lead to a more stable marriage in the future. So those are things you should consider if you're living in one of those communities, that even if everyone around you seems to think that you got to get married young, you got to start having kids young, there's a lot of places in America where people don't think that way, and the divorce rates are actually a lot lower. So when you put all this together, it makes a lot of sense that those areas would be at a higher likelihood of getting divorced. But for so long, we hear this argument that, homosexuality or gay marriage, that's hurting the sanctity of marriage. And that's why it should be stopped. It ruins straight marriages. And it's like, no, gays aren't ruining your marriage. You're ruining your marriages, conservative Christians. My name is Hemant Mehta, and I write at friendlyatheist.com. Please leave a message in the comments, and we'll be sure to check it out.